Is it possible that the heart of our rural towns isn't found on a map, but in the spaces where we create together? Central Minnesota community art centers are proving that creativity isn't just a hobby. It's the heartbeat of our hometowns. It's a place to learn, a place to create, and most importantly, a place to belong. This is Up North Arts.
Production funding of Up North Arts is made possible in part by First National Bank Bemidji, continuing their second century of service to the community. Member FDIC. Hug Hydronics, committed to making in-floor heating simple, providing in-floor heating solutions for both commercial and residential. More info at hughydronics.com. Closed captioning of Up North Arts is provided in part by Renaissance Hearing Center, committed to enhancing your hearing, allowing you to enjoy life's most important moments.
It's a place of gathering of all demographics, all age groups, about education, about arts. No matter if you're a teacher or you're a learner, a performer, you could be anybody, and you're just welcomed to this place to come in and be a part of it. And that's the coolest thing about this, because there is no, hey, you have to be. You just have to be.
So McCrosty Arts Center actually started in the 1960s, and at that time it was known as the Itasca Art Association. It kind of began as like an more informal group of painters that wanted to find ways to exhibit work and kind of grow in their own learning about painting. And so that began in the 60s, and in the early 1990s, the building that we currently are in was donated to the Arts Center by Ruth McCrosty. And then in partnership with the Blindham Foundation, they sort of set up the Art Center as it's known today. And that really, I think, propelled the MAC into another level of community arts center, because we had a dedicated space and we're able to do a lot more with our programming and really kind of become the hub of the creative community that we are today.
When I first moved to New York Mills in the 80s, I moved there in 1987 and started a nonprofit organization in 1989. I'd have conversations with farmers, where I learned, dinner isn't at, at night, it's at noon, and had conversations about their hopes and dreams for the future, and they involved arts and culture. There just wasn't any access to it.
So the city at that time contributed $35,000 in 1991, which is a pretty significant amount of money, especially on a per capita level. Our population was about 1,000 at that time. And so this place was renovated and opened in 1992 as what we're in today. It can be challenging for any area, but maybe particularly for a smaller community to get excited about new ideas. And so as the story goes, and in fact, I have an old New York Mills Herald, which is a local newspaper, that they did a survey when the Cultural Center was first being renovated, and they surveyed the community and said, how many people think we should do this? And it was 67% of people said no. And so I was like, okay, well, we're doing it anyway, so here we go. But then the good part of the story is they surveyed people a year after it opened, and it had flipped completely. So 70% of people at that point said, this is a great idea.
I heard about this opportunity in Warroad that folks were looking to build a new arts and cultural center, and I was intrigued. So I reached out and had a series of conversations and thought, well, this could be a really cool project. But what got me hooked was the vision of it. And the vision of this project in Warroad was all about access to the arts, right? how do you connect community to arts and culture, and how do you create a space that's inviting to everyone in the community? So we actually did a tour for the entire third grade class. And they had their hard hats on, and the safety vests were like way down to their knees, and it's a lot to wrangle third graders, so we had them divided up into different groups, right? And but it was amazing, because then they would go home and talk with their parents about what it was, right? And their teachers like, oh, this is what this is. We're going to have plays here. We're going to have classes for kids, and so. Again, you're starting to get that. This is for me. Like, this is what it can be, and right over there at the performance hall door, one of the third graders looked up at the mezzanine seating, and said, "Oh, is that where the VIPs sit?" And the construction manager, Carly, who's absolutely amazing, she said with like no hesitation, "At River Place, everyone's a VIP."
I spent a lot of my days as a kid here because we'd come fishing. So Warroad was kind of my backyard, but it was only fishing. It was only fishing. We'd kind of skirt the town and head to the lake. So I really didn't know much about Warroad. And when I heard about the building being put up, I still didn't have any concept of it. And then I got to come, I think I was part of the same show, but it was like, wow, this is just so cool and beautiful.
This venue is going to offer so much to our community. A place for wedding receptions, school programs, community plays. As you know, we have a very active summer theater program. So it's good for that. And our classrooms here offer the ability to do all kinds of things, coupled with a first-class commercial kitchen as well.
We're really fortunate that we have this space in downtown Grand Rapids. It's really become a hub of our creative community, and one of the ways that shows up is every month we have a First Friday Art Walk that's throughout the downtown. There's usually 8 to 12 different stops, and McCrosty is usually an anchor event in that, because each month we have an opening reception for one of our exhibits. And we get a great turnout for those events. It's always fun when we have visiting artists from metro areas that come in and are surprised to see that we have 100 people attending a reception instead of a dozen that they might get at some other locations. So I've been here for about 14 years, and we've done a lot of growing over that time. The space itself has expanded a little bit. We've added the Guinean Creative Space and the gallery there, but also just in terms of our programming, we've kind of broadened our exhibitions. We also collaborate with the Rife Performing Arts Center and curate exhibits in their space as well.
Just about everybody in the community has walked through these doors for one reason or another, and the community here in Grand Rapids is stronger because of the arts, because of the Rife.
As soon as I started participating in it, I realized of how many different things go on. Like, there's art festivals, there's art walks, there's lots of live music going on. We have the Rife, which has a lot of music and performing, and I feel like that this town has grown into a more arts focused town, which is really awesome to see.
We had not lived here very long and wanted something fun to do and just get to see people and kind of see what's happening in Grand Rapids. And so we came and started checking out the place. We had gotten some free tickets from a friend who said, "You need to check this out." So we came for, I think it was a concert, I don't remember. Absolutely fell in love with the place and started volunteering right then and there.
The art scene in rural areas is really something that is really unique, and I've talked with a lot of other directors and folks that work at art centers in other rural spaces, and there's a lot that we have in common that I think isn't necessarily universal across more metropolitan areas. So in rural spaces, there's a lot more. I just feel like the community involvement can sometimes be a lot more significant, just because there's smaller town, people know each other more, and there's just it feels like more of a community process and a community experience. And particularly when we're featuring local artists, there's just a lot of support that comes with that, and it's just nice to see that sort of the back and forth that comes with that, where it's not, somebody's not just kind of plopping in and sharing, but there's a give and take as well.
So we've had international artists from a number of different countries. Finland is what pops into my head right now, but we've had lots of other artists from the Ukraine, from Czech Republic. So people are coming from all 50 states, all over the world, and they're bringing different perspectives and different ideas. And then they come and they talk to people here in New York Mills and the surrounding region, and they hear different perspectives and different ideas. We had an artist here from the Czech Republic, and he had lived in a lot of different places, including, the coast, New York, LA, Chicago. He was in the Czech Republic, and he came to New York Mills. He was a poet. And people are so used to visiting artists in New York Mills, and we're still pretty small. We're about 1,300 people, and so oftentimes artists are recognized. Like, it's somebody who looks a little different. They walk everywhere. They hang out at the cafe and at the bar a lot, So they meet people, and so as he was meeting people, they would be like, "Oh, are you the artist?" "Yep, I'm the artist." "Well, what do you do?" "I'm a poet." And they'd be like, "Oh, that's cool." And then they just keep talking about whatever else they were talking about. And after several weeks of this, Tim came to us and he said, "I have to tell you guys something. This is literally the only place I've ever been in my life where people ask me what I do, what I am, and I say I'm a poet, and they just accept that at face value." And he said, everywhere else in the world that I've been, people say, "Okay, well, what do you really do?" Or like, "What do you do for money? Like, how do you make a living?" But here, people just accepted him as a poet. And I think that's such a beautiful story of the impact of 35 years of people being here, being ingrained into the community members welcoming them, and then just that cultural exchange and the idea of, we all have something to offer and we can all find ways to communicate and connect and get along.
The Smoky Hill Drum Group was here, and they taught us how to make a Native American hand drum. And then after we made it, we went on stage and we got to be part of a unity circle they sang the songs, thank goodness. But we got to learn the different beats to the drum and what they mean. And during that, the kids were dancing around the circle, and there were elders in the audience that were also doing the dances. I was like, wow, in world.
I think part of making arts accessible to everyone is listening. Finding out what their hopes and dreams are, what interests them, and how you make art and culture relevant in people's lives.
I don't think I ever set foot in the Art Center when I was growing up. I always found it a little intimidating, and I thought it was the kind of place you had to tiptoe around and whisper, and I think I did probably come in a few times, but since moving back as an adult, I was able to be much more involved in the art scene, and that's one of the things I always think about with the Art Center, is trying to make it a really welcoming space where kids can come in. We had a dog in today, everyone's welcome.
We are a space for everybody. We added to our vision statement that we focus on celebrating the local and being a window to the world. And so we talk about both of those things being equally important. So about half of our programs, we want to make sure we're celebrating the local culture, local artists. This gallery show is a really great example of that. So this is always a wildlife and decoy show, which goes with our Fish House Festival theme. So we have decoy artists that, honestly, a lot of these decoy artists didn't necessarily think of themselves as artists. They absolutely are. They're carving these fish, they're painting them, they're amazing, they're beautiful. We find these wildlife painters or outdoor art painters. This is a fun show to celebrate the local. And then being that window to the world comes out in a lot of different ways too. Part of it can be celebrating, learning more about our Finnish heritage as that world, bringing in artists from other areas for concerts, for classes, for education series, just to learn about other perspectives too.
It wasn't until we started volunteering here that we started seeing there is so much to do with the arts. I mean, even just the things on the walls, that there's such a variety. When you say the arts, I didn't realize before all the avenues that really just branch off of the word the arts. And the array of people it can involve, from little tinies who barely can talk to the elderly, that have so much to offer to the arts.
We have a lot of different exhibits, and sometimes it appeals to people, sometimes they don't, and people don't always find something they resonate with, but because we have so many different artists that we feature, each month it's something new, and there's just a wide variety of artwork, so there's usually something for somebody to connect with. It's really important to know that art is for everybody. It's not exclusive. We have our center here, but we also try to look for ways to bring art out into the community so people can encounter it in their everyday lives. We've put up some murals around town, and we've been involved with other public art projects, and we just think that that art's an important part of everybody's life.
I've also gone out and taught art workshops at Empowering Kids, which is a program for children with autism or young adults, people with autism, and then also at facilities that work with adults with disabilities. And that is another area of education and art that is really near and dear to my heart. So being able to take arts to everybody at all ages or have them come in here. I'm a big believer in taking art outside the walls. So getting out to teach everyone just fulfills that mission of making sure everybody has access to quality arts.
So we talk about the arts, there can be culinary arts, or there can be the arts of civic engagement. Like we really are broad in our definition of the arts, but I just think there's a lot of really cool examples of people being out there doing things that maybe they don't necessarily consider to be art, but we think that any creative practice can be considered art. So metalsmiths that are creating sculptures or more functional pieces, whatever that might be, again, not necessarily thinking of themselves as artists. Some of them, we've had like fishing spears or knives, a lot of different more functional pieces, but we'll put them on the wall in the gallery and suddenly it's art, or it feels more like art, right? So it's been really fun to work with different groups of people like that and be able to just embrace this idea of arts and creativity in rural spaces.
There's too many people who think, well, I can't do art, and so I'll never draw, and so arts aren't for me. And it is so wrong, because arts are all encompassing. And I think there are cultures who don't have like a word for art. Art is not separate. Art is part of their entire being, their entire way of living. It just is.
I believe at its core, the arts bring folks together.
I think people just disagree on a lot of things, and sometimes it can be really hard to find connections. And I think art is a way for people to connect. So whether that's coming together for concerts or comedians or all different types of performing arts, coming together to look at art on the walls or to create art together. These community festivals are one of my favorite things that we do because it brings people from all walks of life, and especially the Fish House Festival, because you're getting, ice fishermen, anglers, you're getting all different kinds of people that come together, and it's beautiful. I've gotten to know so many different people that I never would have otherwise.
I think they talk about food deserts, I think there's such a thing as an art desert, and so just having that accessibility for people to just come in here, maybe they're up fishing for the weekend, maybe it's raining, they can come in here and look at the artwork for free and attend the musical and the drama and all.
It's making art relevant in people's lives, and by inviting farmers into the process, it creates that welcoming sense that, oh, this is for me too. Because a lot of times people think, well, that's not for me. But if you're inviting everyone in, it's like, oh, well, this is for me too. Or, oh, I know Bob, he's got that, combine down the road and he's doing something as well.
I watch people come in and they're happy. They're excited about what's going to happen. They're thrilled to have the next door neighbor be here. And I didn't know you were coming. I mean, it just is so many things. It brings so many people together. And people I don't think you would see together in any other place, to be honest with you, maybe the grocery store, but it brings out this feeling of camaraderie, my neighbor, people hugging. I love hugging, and you see a lot of that when people come in, and it's like, wow, I didn't know you were coming. So I really like that because it's almost like getting around Grandma's dinner table many years ago.
A sense of belonging. Everybody belongs. And that's what I mean. This is a place that everybody belongs to. It's not for somebody or something, it's for everybody. And so it gives you that sense of belonging. One of the most important things you can do is bringing your youth up. And that is huge up here into bringing the youth into the arts, into giving them self-confidence and into doing whatever they want to do right here.
It's a place for people to come together in community, but then also to have these conversations with artists and learn more about their work and just to be really curious about other people's perspectives. I think that's a great thing that art can do, is just bring a lot of different ideas together, and you might encounter something that you wouldn't have necessarily encountered before or understood, but it gives you another way of looking at the world through other people's eyes.
You don't do art at people, you with them and you listen. Providing access to the arts builds community. You know, the thing about the arts and culture and education is that sometimes you don't know the impact of that work until years later. When a kid grows up, it's like, well, you know what? That's what that did for me, that experience. And so seeing, those third grade kids come in a construction zone and then seeing them here, that can be transformative. And so to me, that's the power of arts and culture, is that possibility for inspiration, that possibility for creating ripples that you don't even know what they are.
The thing about Minnesota that is really amazing, and I think the whole country ought to realize, is just how supportive of the arts Minnesota is. And that's a real attraction. And I would say that for any artist anywhere who is thinking of where can I go, what can I do, is to really look at Minnesota, because you won't find support like this just about any other state because of the Legacy Amendment that supports the arts.
So it's actually sort of like a legend among among rural art centers. And that is that within the first 5 years of the Cultural Center opening, New York Mills had 40% job growth and 17 new businesses opened. So I don't know that we can take credit for 100% of that, but certainly we were a very positive factor. And there are several businesses that have told us, like, we're here because of the Cultural Center.
I feel like the arts are gonna constantly grow. And I feel that places that are smaller are starting to get more into the arts as time goes on. And I'm seeing smaller towns begin to flourish with more arts communities, bands, music, just all of that.
You look at the history of Warroad and you look what it's known for, right? You're talking about a community that's based off of industry and manufacturing and hockey, right? And then you bring a place in that brings in creativity, it brings in art, it brings in performance, and it just brings in education, and it thrives. Well, it was needed. It was needed for a long time, and it's going to thrive for a very long time because everybody belongs to it. You know, no matter who you are, no matter what this is about what you want to bring to it, it's going to thrive.
My thoughts for the future are connecting this even more with the community. Like, it's just scratching the surface of possibilities. So my hopes would be there's a dozen new ideas for different programs that could activate the outdoor spaces, to connect with the water. Docks and boat access are like, what are the next steps? A lot of the work that's happening here, it's planting seeds of possibility, right? And so to me, the exciting part about planting seeds is, some of them are going to grow, some of them you have no idea what they're going to turn into, but you have to plant the seeds. And that's the magic of possibilities.
So we're trying to be as sustainable as we can with our choices, make all of our systems more efficient. And then the big dream portion is to expand so we can serve more people. And that really exciting part is about going backwards and growing the building, putting in an elevator so we would be fully accessible to everybody, adding a drive-through coffee shop. That's a big thing that a lot of people in this community have talked about for a long time.
Thinking to the future, and just our goals day to day too, are just trying to connect as many people as we can with the arts. So we're never going to get there. We're never going to get all the way there and have every single person in our community experiencing art, but we just try to find new ways to get art out, get it out there, bring people in, and just create opportunities for people to express themselves, experience other people's art.
What really inspires me is seeing those long-term ripple effects, right? Where it can start to impact policy, where it can start to impact kids' lives, and whether it's a smile on a face or someone's like, oh, that's what it can be. Allow kids to experience their first, movie or their first play or their first art class and give them that encouragement and support. That's where the magic can happen, years later. Because creativity is something that not everyone's going to be an artist in life or a musician. But if you have a creative spirit, you can start looking at creative problem solving and the work that you do differently. And so that's where that relevancy comes into everyday life too. It's if you present arts and culture that way, you're opening up your playbook of possibilities.
Production costs for this program have been made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the members of Lakeland PBS.